Hey, welcome back to Tactics Talk with Guido. I've got a replay analysis for you today. Polecat Price has sent me in a couple replays of his JPZ E100, the Jaggeroo. You can see he is loaded into Lakeville and he's top tier in a 357. But before we get started, let's back up a little bit and take a look at the email that he sent me, or the PM that he sent me. And he told me that he was introduced to my posts and YouTube channel by a clanmate, which I appreciate that. And he's gone through a bunch of my YouTube videos and decided that they have helped him a little bit, but he decided to contact me directly. And in his PM to me, he talks about how he's an older player at 62 years old, which I appreciate. I'm nearly 50. And mentions that, hey, you know, I don't have the Twitch thing down and I want to try to get better. So a couple things with that, Polecat, and anyone else who's listening. Number one, this game is aimed at, to a large extent, older gamers. Obviously, the whole gamut likes to play it, but it is especially suited to some of the older gamers based on a couple reasons. Number one is it is a relatively slow-flowing game for an online PvP shooter type of game. And number two, it is a little bit more about positioning and strategy than simply raging forward, bunny hopping, and all that other stuff that you might find in a first-person shooter. Those games certainly have strategy as well, especially at the top level. Just raging forward and YOLOing is going to get you killed in nearly any game. But because the units, the tanks and such, move so relatively slowly on this game, and they've got the spotting mechanics and several other game mechanics out there, and the reloads are relatively short, especially if you're talking about a Jaggeroo, for the older gamer set, this can be a very appealing game. So that's that part. The second part is talking about the Twitch types of aspects of this game, and using that, I'm going to say using it as an excuse, and that's not exactly what I mean. I'm not calling you out, Polecat, or anybody else for that matter, but saying that I'm not going to be very good or I am limited by my Twitch capabilities. Try to use that less as an excuse and more as an understanding of how you have to play the game. And this game allows you to do that, and it is mostly about positioning. When I looked up your player profile, which I do a little stalking when somebody shows up the first time and asks me for some help, I want to get a little understanding of where they are in the game and what they're doing. And usually I keep that to myself, but it's germane to this replay and to my discussion that we're having right here philosophically before we get going. When I looked at your JPZ stats, a couple things jumped out at me. Number one is your hit rate's at 73, which is not bad. Probably should be a little better for a tank that really requires some serious aiming in a very slow, ponderous gameplay, and you don't want to make any misses because that really hurts you on a long reload. But 73 is in the ballpark. However, when I look at your damage caused and received, it's 0.75, which means for every point you put down range, or for every point somebody puts on you, you only put down range 0.75 or 75% of that. That means you're losing the trading war. You're doing less damage than you're taking, and that makes you a hindrance to the team. Again, no insults intended right there. This is just the honest truth of what the numbers are telling me. In addition to that, you're running at a 39% win rate, which would jive for a tier 10 that's only doing 75% of every hit point it takes. So those are the facts. Those are a couple things philosophically. So let's go ahead and look at that then on Lakeville, which is quite the positioning map. Most of them are, and this one especially is important. And there's going to be some interesting things that happen on this, and I hope that once we're done here, you'll have a little bit better idea of maybe how to move forward on some of your other games. Let's get started. You can see that Polecat Price has spawned in North Spawn. He's on a standard map, not the encounter, and he is headed off to the east as of right now in his Jaggeroo. Great big slow beast of a TD. You will enjoy the chat through this game. Polecat does not jump in on it, but there's a couple guys that get very salty. So enjoy that as I go. And the Jaggeroo is heading across. All right, Polecat, let's talk a little bit about positioning right off the bat, and a little bit about maneuvering to that position. This map is notorious for getting slapped in the side right about here. The Leopard and the JT, and especially the T45, are way too close to the water. The reason being that a scout can get right up in here and spot you. There's a couple bushes where they can get you. You're just at the edge of where they will see you, plus you have about 0 camo. Thing is easy to see. If they fully YOLO forward, they're probably going to die, but they're more than likely going to light everybody up. Sorry, on your side. Going this way, going the wrong way. If they YOLO forward to this corner, they're going to light everybody, and whatever tanks down here are going to have a field day shooting at all you guys. You need to take this Jaggeru as far towards the red line as possible up there. At the very least, over here towards this rock. Every inch you can get over towards the red line over here is going to help you. In addition, camera work. When I'm driving, I'm looking this way. I want to see what's going on. Maybe I see a tree down. Maybe I see a tank. Whatever SA I can get. Maybe I see trees down over here as the scout goes blazing through this way. I want to gather SA, so I am using my camera to see what's important, not just drive forward. So off we go. JT cuts back up, and there is a scout going through the middle, and I liked this because that seems to me that you were watching the minimap and had SA that a scout was down there and maybe getting close to spotting you. I would imagine you've probably had problems getting spotted and wrecked before, and off we go. So nice job on that. I do appreciate that little move, and we'll come up here towards this rock. And this scout is hell-bent on just blazing forward, and that can be a problem. Your T-44 gets wrecked because of it. He was out in the open. The Leopard is now taking on this scout, and I am not certain. We'll look at it later. I looked through this once. I'm not certain you actually have 6th Sense on this tank. We'll talk about that a little while later. I was surprised you weren't spotted right there, but he may have not quite come around that building, and they end up taking out the scout. I think it was wise, if that's what you were doing, was staying there for making sure you don't get spotted, and maybe somebody spots someone in the middle. That's all good. And that's a decent positioning decision for a TD. So you've come across. We're going to belabor the crap out of this positioning thing because it's important. You've come across, you stayed here, looked for some shots, no lights, hid from the scout, all good, and now we're going to head on into town. And I think that's the right decision here. Except that you don't head on into town. So we're going to come up, we're going to find this bush and the biggest tank in the game just about. Does this bush make me look fat? Actually, you're out in the open for the moment. Taking a look over there. Now you do have a 110E5 moving forward, so if you're noticing that, that's good. Just see if you can get a shot if he happens to spot anyone. Why your tier 10 heavy is in the middle is another question entirely that cannot be asked here. Or answered anyway, it certainly can be asked. Alright, let's talk positioning once again. Take a look at the mini-map there, Polecat, and think about the things I've talked about in the past that you've looked at my videos, and ask yourself where I think you should be. Where does Guido think you should be right now? Or at least moving towards. And if you said the city, then you're absolutely right. We've got a 110E5 here in the middle, being completely useless. That's a terrible spot for him. The Udes is covering this. That's fine. He's covering the middle road. He's not very much use going into the city. 2 JTs and you are all in the corner. You guys are all in northeast corner. Literally, probably the absolute worst place you three could be. Unless a scout or a medium gets all the way up to where those bushes in that corner is, which is extremely dangerous, and unless they're a YOLO idiot, no one's going there. You can absolutely do nothing to anybody in this game. You can shoot anyone down here in these buildings, which nobody goes to. No one's coming through where the Leopard and the IS-7 are right now. And this 110E5 has proved nobody's on stupid corner down here. So, and I know I'm being a little bit harsh. I am calling out a little bit, but just think about that for a minute. Position-wise, what exactly are you three going to accomplish right there? And I can't talk to those two. I don't know what they're doing. I like your AMXs back here too, and that's part of the salt on the chat if you're following that. And we've got a couple guys watching the valley, and I think this is about the best setup you can have as far as what the enemy has done and what you've done. You've sent a couple there to watch. Hell, even their 110E5 seems to be in the valley like a I'll stop using names, like a not smart person. And you've got a pretty good push going into the town. So on Lakeville, the way you win this is you win the town. You send as much as you can. You make sure you don't get rolled up over here. Maybe a couple people watching, but you can always flex back if you need to. Couple guys watching the middle, ideally not your 110E5. And you four all piling into the city and just eating these guys up. Look at this. You've got a JT, and the JPZ, the size of those guns, the fear factor of those three driving in and locking down lanes in this city. I'm not talking about YOLO forward and get flanked and dead, but you got an IS-7 and a MIL, a Leopard, this VK is going in there. You are going to have a serious force in there if you had done it. So we're going to trundle forward a little bit. Maybe we are going into the city. Pretty soon you're going to see a scrum develop in the city. Nope, we're going to grab another bush. Just in case somebody shows up, which, to be quite honest, who's going to spot them, I don't know. The UDs, the CDC, the JTs, everybody else continues to argue. I'm sorry I wasn't showing what he's doing. That is not a bad decision right there, but a lot of times what I will do with that polecat is I will move forward to about that position smartly. I won't stop back where you did. I will take one poke into maybe sometimes into these bushes over here, right here and right here, especially if I think a scout might be in there. Maybe a couple of our guys took some hits on the side and we didn't see where the scout was. I might shoot into one of those two bushes. They're usually in the second one, but if they're aggressive, they're in the first one. Or like you did, a shot right there where the TDs usually sit. But I would have done that quite a while ago, and then I'd have 90 left and headed on into town. Hey, look. There goes the UDs. He's running off. Now this is a higher order kind of thing. You're sort of looking right there, hoping maybe he'll appear again, I guess. But if you look at your mini-map, you can see he's still traveling backwards. So if you actually moved your camera and look at your gun line, if you moved your camera back here, you might have been able to go, all right, I think he's going to be here. I'm reloaded, and just wait for that little triangle to get to about that spot and pickle that shot off. You can even time it if he disappears, just based on the rate of his movement and your reload. Just go, okay, I think he's about now. Boom, take that shot. I've killed people doing that. It looks like you realized it maybe a little bit late. No shot there. And now you've got the tanks are engaged in the town. So you've got a Patton, a Mod 1, an Indian Panzer. Your 100's getting blapped. Nothing going on in the valley, so you're fine as far as your 6 o'clock goes. And I would say here, Polecat, just drive right into that town and start wrecking face. IS-6 is in good shape. The 100.01's been hammered a couple times. Probably got hit by TDs. And now we're just going to sit back. Driving back, driving back, driving back, driving back. And you're down 5 tanks to 3. 5 tanks to 3, your 100.1's about to die, your IS-7 is alone and unafraid, or very afraid at 78%, and you've got multiple tanks in there. You've also got some tanks pushing the middle, but your 110E5's got them dealt with. Potentially, you could have got a shot on that AC if you'd have noticed that and backed up. If you've noticed that and backed up, you may have had some shots right there. But we're going to sit. The other JT has shifted across for some reason, and the one behind you is still sitting there guarding I don't know what. There we go. So he actually helped out with the AC-48 because it foolishly moved forward. Let's talk about that for a minute, because now that guy's feeling vindicated. He's thinking, man, I am in a good position. I just wrecked that push up the middle. Well, that push up the middle was foolish, because it also lost us our 110. That's more proof that it's ridiculous to drive up there, especially with this many guns in the game. But he killed that guy, and now he's feeling vindicated that, man, I have a great TD spot. I can just really control this road. Well, yeah, you can if the other team has a really dumb person. So if your positioning decision, and I'm going to hammer home positioning in this video, if your positioning decision is based around the other team being very stupid, that's probably not a really great plan. Your positioning decision should be based around you being really smart. All right, let's get going. Man, if you just drove into this town right here and started helping out this IS-7 and this VK-100, I tell you, you win. If you and that other JT were in there, if you and both JTs were in there, the fight would be over. Or they'd be running for their lives. Okay, so we get a shot in there. That's all right. This is the same discussion, though, here, Polecat, that I had with the JT, and I like that you're moving forward. I don't think you have 6 cents. And let's stop right here because I don't know why. I hope it's not a case of you did not get it. I only sort of hope that, because the next thing I was going to say is I hope it's a case of you have a relatively new crew, but then I have to ask, why do you have a new crew in your JPZ 100? That will be interesting to me. If you want to send me a note or let me know what's going on with that crew, but if it has multiple skills and you don't have 6 cents, you have got to get 6 cents. If 6 cents goes off here later on, then I apologize, but I don't remember seeing it. All right, so this is all right. You're moving forward, but holy cow, it's too late, isn't it? The IS-7's down to 7%. The 100.01 is down to 6%. Now, this is pretty classic for players who are more careful. Usually I say passive, but that is what it is. More careful, TD kind of casemate players. There is an argument to use standoff in these tanks so that you don't get flanked. But you can still get into this city and use these lanes and these roads to avoid getting flanked, especially when you had in past tense some allies in here. So you do want to maintain some distance, but you could have positioned much further forward. The other thing that does is the fear factor of that gun adds to the initiative of your team. It allows your other tanks with turrets to have a little bit more maneuver room. And it allows them to take shots without being immediately punished because the other tanks feel like they can come right around the corner and whack them. If you're sitting there locking down the lane, they're not going to pop out and eat 1,000 only to do 200 or 300 to your 100.1 or your IS-7. But if you're not there stopping them, then once the IS-7 shoots, he gets hit 3 or 4 times by little tanks and eventually whittled down. And what I started to say is this, as far as the classic kind of mistake positioning-wise that casemate TD players will make, is all of a sudden you're raging forward going, oh my god, my guys are dying. Had you been there beforehand, they more than likely would not be as dead. And there goes your IS-7. And now you're in much more danger of being flanked if all these mediums push in and around you. So again, a classic case of positioning, bad decision early on, and now that it's lost, all of a sudden we're running in trying to save things and make it happen, which I appreciate, but you should have been there much earlier. You definitely got to watch getting surrounded by that T-54 Mod 1 and whatever it is, the Indian, whatever the other guy that is that's stacked in there. Here comes the JT, who all of a sudden probably sees the same thing, thinking, oh no, those idiots in town, they always lose and I have to come clean it up. You have a little bit of trouble getting around this. These stairs right here are not to be destroyed or damaged by your Jackaroo. All right, we come in here. All right, you see how that T-54 Mod 1 just took a shot at you? He's actually shooting through these pilings right here, or these columns. You do have a shot on this guy. So that's just map awareness right there. Investigate that. Zoom in and see if you can't shoot him right through there and punish that guy. You definitely had that shot. Now, nice job here. I will tell you that as far as technically angling your tank and being careful and taking shots with this tank, you do a pretty nice job of that, and we'll see good examples of that. And there's that shot I talked about. You definitely had it, and had you investigated a little sooner, you might have got a shot on that guy. Yeah, you do need to be careful. Pushing out a little too much, and this Mod 1, he just really wants to have that happen to him. I think he thought you shot because the Patton shot at you, and he just made a mistake on reload because you were reloaded, and you get hit by somebody from across there. Looks like that Yudes now has a shot down that lane. Remember, that lane does have shots on you, and now we're backing out a bit, which I think is a wise decision at this point. But Bad Bill 81 is moving forward, so let's get in there and start supporting that guy. Yeah, if you move back too far, you start eating artillery as well. And it looks like there's only one dude back in here and a bunch of guys camping, so this is a good time to move forward. But imagine you still had an IS-7 and a 100.1.01 with you. How great would that be? Because it could have easily happened had you been up in there. And they're still arguing. The CDC, I think the Tiger 2, whoever's yelling at him, the Udes, that JT. The great thing is, watch this CDC, folks. He figures it's time. It's time to bring the power of the CDC in. Which brings me to another great discussion relating to positioning and people who tend to hang back in both, in anything really, typically in the casemate TDs, but even in tanks like the CDC, players who are very passive and sit back sniping. When they do move forward, because they don't do it very much, they don't practice it, that's not their play style, they really do it poorly. So you'll notice you get down to games like this where it's mostly TDs and the campers that are alive. If your good players that were aggressive haven't managed to keep enough hit points to still be in the game right now, which is obviously the goal, but if they've made a couple mistakes and they're out of the game, then you just got to watch people do very foolish things late game because they're just not that good. Whoa. This was nicely done, just aimed right in there. Nice patience. You knew you had him. Good angling right here. That guy gets punished by the JT, and now you're... Oh, here comes the CDC. Here's our friend, Spartan. 6669. Oh, great. So he's got both 666 and 69 in his game. That's fantastic. All right, so we'll move forward here. Tortoise and the T10 are camping. That was to your benefit right there. None of those guys were really basically out of the game most of the game. I mean, nobody pushed down to our cap. Actually, one guy did. You'll find him in just a minute. But a good portion of their power sat at their cap. Nice job with the angling right there. You'll notice that every time Polecat shoots and he knows he's spotted, he'll just kind of put that angle on there. Now we're moving up. We got the big JPZ. My dog's coughing up a hairball. All right, here we go. And from here, this is a pretty good job, I would say, Polecat, as far as dealing with these guys. Yeah, you don't have 6 cents on this, do you? You whack that guy for another 949. We're at 4,500. Good angling. Boom. Another bounce off of you. The Tortoise surprised me. He kept shooting you. There's the guy I was talking about. The T-30 has actually gone all the way around. He's on that center road. Now you're eating shots from him. The Tortoise was shooting at you so fast. At first I was kind of like, what on earth is going on? Then I realized he's got the small gun on that thing. That's unfortunate. Didn't go through him on that. I think we're going to eat another shot here. Oh, bounced it. Bounced the T-30 shot. Bounced the Tortoise shot. Nice job kind of going towards both of them as best you can, putting as much angle on there. Got the Yudes sitting there. I didn't realize this, but I think the Yudes is actually on his side. Let's see if we can see him. Yep, he's up on his side, so he's guarding the middle road with the side of his tank. What's pretty funny is you'll see that the T-30, the enemy T-30, comes down the road, and I think he actually knocks over the Yudes and gets him back up. There goes the T-10. So you know from where you were hit that the T-30 is on the center. I'd have just spun around right there. Maybe you're looking for the artillery. That is a problem if he's back behind you. I'm not sure he ever shows up again. I think he's gone through the center and followed his T-30 because he knew he was getting pushed. There goes our artillery, who was running across the open right there. RJT jumps down into the valley for some reason, unknown why. May have been looking for the T-30, I don't know, if you didn't realize that you were being hit by him. T-30 takes out the other JT, so the camping JT, he moves forward and gets immediately killed. Don't worry, the Yudes will stop him. Alright, let's just speed this thing up. Boom. Yeah, I think he knocks over the Yudes. Now the Yudes is trying to run away. Oh, is he going to get away? Speed problems. Press the button too many times. There we go. Getting forward. Controls on the replays are so wonky. And we end up winning through a cap. All right, and the game goes away. So anyway, Polecat, man, I hope this helped you there. Quite a few things, I think, and I really hammered home the positioning thing. But that's important, I think, for the older gamers who don't want to get in there and mix it up with the Twitch skills. They don't want to circle in lights and that kind of thing. The point of all that, if I boil it down to its basic parts, is through good positioning and decision making, you can get closer to the fight and get your gun in and be more of a factor earlier than you think you can. The trick is to make sure you don't overextend. But that was a classic case of you had plenty of guys around you to get that great big boomstick in and amongst them in that town right there, and you could have had a huge effect on that battle. Had the two JTs pushed in with you along with the other forces, you'd have eaten them up so fast and pushed into their cap they'd have had no chance whatsoever. As it was, it became a lot closer than it was, and you'll drop, I don't know, 5,500, 5,600 damage, which is a good job. But this then gets into that whole discussion of useless damage. You know, if you'd have lost, which was entirely possible on that game, and done 5,600 damage, then it'd have been very obvious you were doing the wrong damage at the wrong time. It's not as obvious because it was a win, but to some extent you were doing the wrong damage at the wrong time because a lot of your forward tanks had already died based on you being so far back. Anyway, hope this helps. Hope this helps somebody out there. If you like what you saw, make sure you subscribe. If you want me to do a replay analysis, go ahead and send it on in and I will do so. Or if you've got a game with something amazing happens or you just have a fantastic 7,000, 8,000 damage game or whatever, send it on in. And as always, we will see you.